Hi everybody. I know we're just a minute before noon. Gonna take some time to let people join us for today's Box Live. My name is Chef Afton. As you can see, we're not in a gym today. We're in a kitchen. We're in my home kitchen. I'm here in Arlington, Massachusetts. If you want to tell me where you are, I think you should be able to put that into the chat. I'd love to know where people are today. And I'm not someone who works for Reebok or volunteer for Box usually, but I work for something called America's Test Kitchen. And we are friends with Reebok and with Box, and we've been really excited to see everybody doing their workouts at home. And we thought that we could do also a little bit of cooking at home. So I'm just gonna give people one more minute to join in, and we'll get started with hopefully a really fun, different kind of activity today. Let's see. All right. Just trying to move my camera around. Hopefully you guys can see me and hear me okay. Once again, if you're just tuning in, my name is Chef Afton. I work for America's Test Kitchen Kids. We write recipes and do food experiments and activities for kids of all ages. And we were invited by our great friends at Box to do a little bit of cooking here today because eating, cooking, healthy food is also a really important part of staying fit and being well. And it's also really fun. So thought we would change it up a little bit today. So I think we're going to get started. It's just after 12. Hopefully everybody's tuning in. And today I've heard that you guys have been going around the world and have been learning about different flags from different countries. And so we're going to visit a country today and think about a flag. When I went live about 20 minutes ago, I asked if anyone could guess. We're using ingredients today that are green, white, and red. I wondered if you could guess what flag we were going to be cooking today. And if you have a comment, if you have a guess, you can put it in there. I don't see any coming in quite yet, but that's okay. But I've heard that you visited a lot of different places when you've been working out. And if you guessed that today we are going to Italy and learning about the Italian flag, then you're totally right. The colors of the Italian flag are green, white, and red. And today we're going to be using some green basil, hopefully you can see, some red tomatoes, and some white mozzarella cheese, my favorite. So let's get started. We're going to make two things today. And if you want to look up these recipes for yourself and try making them at home, and I hope that you do, you can go to ATK Kids. So America's Test Kitchen, atkkids.com. Tons and tons of free recipes for you to cook at home, and also experiments and activities to try, a great way to spend your summer. So these recipes are at atkkids.com, and they're also in one of our cookbooks for kids called the Complete Cookbook for Young Chefs. So you can also get this from the library or buy a copy, and lots of really fun things to cook in here. So the first thing we're going to cook is a Caprese Panini. So Capri is an island off the coast of Italy, and they started using these three ingredients, basil, tomato, and mozzarella, the colors of the Italian flag, to make a fun salad called a Caprese Salad. You may have had that before. And we took those flavors from that salad and decided to make a recipe for a panini sandwich, an Italian-style sandwich. A panini is a sandwich that is usually served hot, toasted, and is usually pressed flat. So we're going to do that today. So hopefully you can see on my cutting board some ingredients. Hopefully you can see those. So we're starting with 2 slices of hearty, crusty bread. And you can use anything you've got. If you have sandwich bread instead, that's totally fine. But 2 slices of bread. We have a tablespoon of olive oil. We have a 1/2 cup of shredded mozzarella cheese, a small tomato that I sliced up into some circles, and 4 fresh basil leaves. So we have all of those ingredients of a classic caprese. And what I'm going to do to start is I'm going to take my pastry brush and I'm going to dip it into the tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. I'm going to brush my pieces of bread. So as I said, a panini sandwich is a toasted sandwich, so we want it to get nice and brown and crispy. We're going to cook this sandwich in a pan, just the way you cook a grilled cheese sandwich. So I'm using that oil and using my brush and brushing it all on, all over. Great. Now I'm going to take one of these slices of bread and I'm going to flip it over. So this is going to be the bottom and this one's going to be the top. I'm going to take half of my cheese here, and doesn't have to be perfectly exactly measured half, but about half of my shredded cheese. And we're going to kind of make cheese glue. The cheese is going to stick these pieces of bread together. If you've ever made a grilled cheese, it's the same kind of idea. So this is mozzarella cheese, and you can buy it pre-shredded, or I shredded this off of a block of mozzarella with a cheese grater. Now I'm going to take my tomatoes and I'm going to layer them on to my sandwich. Not everybody likes tomatoes, but they're really good for you. They have tons of lycopene, which is really a fun word to say, very delicious. This is a good way to try them. If maybe you're not totally sure about tomatoes, give them a try with some cheese and some bread. You might be surprised. You might like them a little bit more than you think. Then I'm also going to take some salt. I have my fun little salt container. Just going to take a little pinch of salt here, and I'm going to sprinkle over the tomatoes. It helps them taste even actually a little bit sweeter, believe it or not. And then I'm going to take my fresh basil leaves and lay them on here. So do you see all the colors of the flag? White, red, and green. Great. I'm just going to press on those leaves, and then I'm going to take the rest of my cheese and sprinkle it on. Remember how I said we need cheese glue? So we're going to put some on the top as well to stick to that top piece of bread. Sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. Put it all on there. All right. A couple pieces fall off. It's totally fine. Cooking is messy, and that is okay. And then we're going to take this top piece of bread and we're going to put the oiled side up and we're going to press it onto the sandwich here. Okay, so look at that. We've got all the layers, but it's not quite a panini yet. You could eat it this way and it would be pretty tasty, but we want to get we want to get it nice and toasty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this sandwich into a pan. So I have a non-stick skillet. The recipe calls for a little bit smaller one, but I don't have one at home, but that's okay. So I'm going to use a little bit bigger one. This one could fit 2 sandwiches. So if you wanted to make one for you and a sibling or a parent or a friend, you could make 2 sandwiches and put them together in here. And I'm going to pick up my sandwich and I'm going to put it in the pan, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Hopefully. Hopefully you'll be able to see. So here is the sandwich on the stove. Great. So the next thing we need to do to really make it a panini is to press it. Some panini presses are actually sort of look like a waffle iron, and they have ridges inside. And you stick the sandwich in and then you squish it closed, and then it gets nice and toasty on both sides. But I don't have one of those. So we're going to use another fun trick. I'm going to use instead the lid to a saucepan. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to use it as a press because it has that nice convenient handle to hang on to. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it on top of my sandwich, and I'm going to squish it down. You can press pretty hard if you want to, because you really want all the layers to stick together and get nice and flat. So I'm going to press that down, and then I'm just going to leave the saucepan lid right where it is. I'm going to let it hang out there while I cook my sandwich. I'm going to take this sandwich and I'm going to, now I'm going to turn on the stove. So everything has been off so far. If you are cooking at home as a kid, make sure that you ask an adult for help before you turn on the stove and before you use anything hot or sharp. So we're gonna be safe here. We're gonna turn on the stove. We're turning it on to medium heat. And we're just gonna leave that sandwich alone. We're just gonna let it cook with that lid sitting on top of it for about 4 minutes. I'm gonna set a timer here. 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes. And we're gonna see what happens to this sandwich. Hopefully the oil that we spread on the sandwich is gonna help the bread get nice and crispy and golden brown. So we'll check in on it in 4 minutes and see what's happening and see if our bread is ready. In the meantime, we are going to also try another recipe that has to do with Caprese salad or the Italian flag. So this is another recipe from our book and on the website at atkkids.com, and they're called tomato mozzarella bites. So maybe you don't want a whole sandwich. Maybe you're not really hungry for lunch. You just want a healthy snack. So instead of making a whole panini, you can make these little Caprese bites, these little tomato, basil, mozzarella bites. So instead of using the big tomato that we used to slice up to put in our panini, we're going to use these little grape tomatoes. You can also use cherry tomatoes. The grape tomatoes are nice because they're a little bit long and they're easier to cut in half for kids, but any kind of small cherry tomato will work. And just like the tomatoes, we're also going to go mini on the mozzarella. So you can get these mini mozzarella balls. They are called cherry sized or baby mozzarella balls. They're really fun to use for this, but if you can't find them, you can also just use a larger ball of fresh mozzarella and cut it up into some small pieces. That's fine too. We're still going to use basil. We're going to use these little smaller basil leaves for our bites, but any size is okay. And these are really fun snacks to share. You can make these, again, afternoon snack, sharing with folks. They look like a fun little party appetizer too. So this is another fun way to enjoy a Caprese salad. So I've taken 8 of those grape tomatoes and I cut them in half. You can see. So I just cut them in half this way and then put them into a medium bowl. And I'm going to show you what I'm working on here. So hopefully you can see those tomatoes in the bowl. And then I'm going to take the mozzarella balls as well, and I'm going to add those to the bowl with all the halved tomatoes. I'm going to take some more olive oil. This is an important part of Italian cooking, is extra virgin olive oil. So I'm going to take a tablespoon of olive oil, and I'm going to spread it over the tomatoes and the mozzarella, and hopefully you can see that. And then I'm also going to sprinkle this with a little bit more salt. And just take a little pinch in your hand and sprinkle it on there. And then some pepper. And if you don't like pepper, that's okay. You don't have to use it. I'm just gonna grind some black pepper right onto here. So hopefully you can see that in there. And then I'm going to use this spatula and I'm going to just mix those together. We're just kind of making a little salad dressing for our tomatoes and our mozzarella. And that can kind of hang out and let the flavors come together a little bit. Or you can jump in and keep going. But those are all mixed up together now. I hear my timer. That's pretty good timing. So that means that 4 minutes went by, so I need to check on my sandwich. I'm going to use a handy dandy pot holder here, or an oven mitt if you have one, because as everything's heated up, that lid that's still on top of your sandwich that we're using as a panini press can get a little hot. So I'm going to come back over here and take a look at my sandwich. We're going to just move the lid, Let's see if I can do this with all of my hands here. So we have the sandwich, and I'm gonna use my spatula, and I'm just gonna peek underneath because we want to see if the underside is golden brown. So I'm just lifting it up. Oh, looks like it needs like 1 more minute, and that's okay. So I'm just gonna put the lid back on, and I'm gonna let it hang out for 1 more minute. It's good to check and make sure that you're also following the visual in the recipe. So it's good we checked at 4. It's not almost there, but not quite yet. So we're gonna give it a little extra time to get nice and crispy and golden brown. While we wait 1 more minute for our sandwich, I'm gonna show you how we're going to make our bites. So we have our tomato and mozzarella, olive oil, salt and pepper, all dressed up in a bowl. And then I have all of the little basil leaves in this bowl. And I'm going to take some toothpicks. This recipe works best with sort of longer, heavy-duty toothpicks, but regular toothpicks can work too. It just helps if they're a little bit longer so you have a little more room. So these are sandwich picks, but you can use whatever you find, or you can make these into longer skewers if you have some skewers that maybe your family uses for grilling, making kebabs, that kind of thing. But we're gonna start with a piece of tomato, and we're gonna put it on the end. Be careful, these are sharp, so make sure that if you're doing this together, there's a grown-up that can help you. But we're gonna take that tomato and we're just gonna push it onto the end of our toothpick. We're gonna take a piece of basil and we're going to slide it on there. And then we're gonna take that baby mozzarella ball, so cute, put that on there too. And then we're gonna finish it with 1 more piece of tomato. So now you have all the colors of the Italian flag and a nice little bite. You've got vegetables and herbs, a little bit of cheese for protein, super delicious snack. So this recipe makes 8 of these. So you have 8 mozzarella balls, 8 pieces of basil, and then 8 tomatoes cut in half. And you can keep going. And you can make whatever pattern you want with these ingredients, or you could mix in some other ingredients if you wanted to. But let's check on our sandwich. So I took the lid off. I'm peeking underneath. Oh yeah, nice and crispy and golden brown. I'm gonna flip it over and then I'll show you what it looks like. So I just flipped it and look at that. So nice and brown and crispy. That olive oil that we brushed on made it really, really delicious. So I'm going to use my pot holder and my lid, and I'm gonna squish the sandwich back down 1 more time, press it nice and flat, leave it there, and I'm just gonna now cook it. It'll be really quick on the second side. Now that our pan has heated up a little bit more, we're just gonna need 2 minutes to let the other side of our bread get nice and brown. And in the meantime, the cheese is gonna melt and it's just gonna stick all those ingredients together, the tomato and the basil and the mozzarella all squished together. So I'm gonna keep going making some bites while we wait for the sandwich to cook. If anybody has any questions, please put them in the comments. I'm doing my best to keep an eye on them as I'm cooking. It's a lot to keep an eye on. But again, I'm just gonna do tomato, basil, mozzarella, and tomato again. Delicious, very fun and fancy. This is a great recipe to make at this time of year because tomatoes are just, local tomatoes here in Massachusetts are just coming into season pretty soon. So it's very summery flavors and really delicious. Oh, Kristen is asking, can you use fresh mozzarella in this recipe? In the recipe for the bites, yes, you can use any fresh mozzarella. So you can use the little mini balls, or you can use a bigger piece that you kind of cut into the size of the tomato. And then in the sandwich, the low moisture mozzarella, the kind you use for pizza, melts a little bit better and is a little less wet. But yes, you could definitely use fresh mozzarella there too if that's what you've got at home. I'm gonna check on that sandwich. Speaking of, I can smell it. It smells toasty. I can hear the cheese starting to sizzle a little bit. So yeah, okay. So I'm going to move this out of the way. I'm going to turn off the stove. It's an important part of cooking. And I'm using my spatula to transfer my sandwich back onto my cutting board so I can cut the sandwich in half. Maybe I'll share half and eat one half, or maybe I'll eat both halves. I'm pretty hungry at lunchtime. Just gotta clean this up. I'll show you what the sandwich looks like here. It's good to let it cool for just a minute or two because it's really hot. It just came out of that pan. The cheese is really melty. It's a good idea with this or with the grilled cheese to let it chill out for a minute or two before you dig in, just so it's not too molten, too lava. So I'm going to take a chef's knife. Again, you can ask a grown-up to help you with this step. And I'm just going to cut it in half down the middle. Trying to show you what I'm doing. Hopefully you can see. Sounds nice and crunchy. And there we go. So we have all the layers of the flag. Can you still see them? The white, green, and red. But our bread is nice and toasty on the outside and crispy, and our cheese is melty. Super delicious. I'm going to take a bite and see what it tastes like here. So, got, again, crispy, crunchy bread, melty cheese, tomato. Again, maybe if you're not a big fan of tomatoes, this would be a good thing to try. Try something new. Some of that basil, too. Oh, delicious. It tastes like pizza in the best way. A lot of those same ingredients that you would find in a pizza. Creamy from the cheese and tangy from the tomatoes and that nice like fresh basil-y flavor, very floral from basil. So good. So as you can see, that was pretty quick, super easy. The name of this recipe we cooked today is a Caprese Panini. You can find it on our website at atkkids.com. And these were called tomato mozzarella bites, also at atkkids.com. We've got tons of free recipes and things to do over the summer. We have a new program called Kitchen Classroom. So if you want to do some learning in the kitchen this summer and fall, it's a great program to check out. And then we also have lots of books. These recipes came from the Complete Cookbook for Young Chefs. We also have a Complete Baking Book for Young Chefs. These are great for kids ages 9 to 13, but good for a little younger, a little older too. So if you want to try cooking a little bit more this summer yourself, you can check out the books and check out the website. And just remember that, you know, eating healthy is an important part of being well. And when you cook it yourself, you can sometimes try things that you wouldn't have otherwise tried and learn something along the way. So I hope that you guys will cook with some fresh vegetables this summer and enjoy fueling up and feeding your body and sharing with your friends and your family because it's a really great feeling to make something from scratch yourself and to share it with somebody else. So I want to say thanks again to Box for having us at America's Test Kitchen Kids as a special guest today for Box Live. We hope everybody's staying safe and staying healthy and is going to enjoy a really, really fun summer. So thank you again so much for having me, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.